Mouserat. I'm using the Arex Trout Predator Streamer long hook in a 2/0. This is a really nice hook. It's I'm going to pull one out here and put it in the vise. Of course, the first thing I always do is I'll crush the barb, even though it's a very small barb. So we'll put it in the vise here. Now when you're doing mouse patterns, you want to use these wide gape stinger style hooks, but you want one that is got a longer shank, like a Tiemco 8089, which is kind of a standard bass hook. It's probably, my guess for the gape is maybe only about that long. This extra length really helps to facilitate getting a little bit longer mouse body, which I think proportionally looks a little better. Just like all my flies, I'm going to start by roughing up this back of the hook shank just a little bit. Just put a little bit of tooth on it. And then I'll just brush that with a little bit of Zap-A-Gap. And then I'm gonna go ahead and use I'm all using my gel spun thread on the tail, because all I'm tying in is single tail, so I'll just use the gel spun to do that. So I'm gonna wrap my thread back through that. And so the tie-in point of this hook is right here, vertical below. It's just about lining it up with the point of the hook. Your tie-in point. And by tie-in point, I simply mean the point where the bend gets started. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to use a piece of pine squirrel for my tail. So we're going to lay this in here like so, and then come in here and hold it in place. You want to hold it right up here on top of the hook shank. So that looks pretty good. So the other thing you've done with the glue, not just gluing the thread in, but it helps to bind the tail in too. So now I'll come forward, let's go ahead and let's wrap a thread wrap base down on the hook shank. Now we'll come right back up here on top of the tail. All right, so now all I'm using is two types of hair. This is a Wapsi Primo strip, what's left of it. I've been tying on it quite a bit, but you'll notice it's got, the tips are really nice on this, and it'll give a nice mousy look. That'll be my back. And then I got another Wapsi Primo strip here that's bleached hair. That's what I'm going to use for my belly. So let's begin with a clump for my belly hair. So I'm going to go ahead and comb out the under fur just like I always do. Lay it in here, come around 3 times. Third one, I roll it to the bottom. I got a couple stray hairs on top. I'll just clip them out. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to just put a little bit of glue in here to kind of make the hair, kind of just makes the fly a little bit tougher. Now I'm going to take my natural deer hair, and I'm going to take a clump out, comb it out, and I'm going to stack this. You probably get away without stacking it, but I don't know, I like to stack it. Okay, so now the idea behind this is I'm going to take these little short tips, I'm going to stack them in there, and then I'm going to keep stacking more and more tips as I go forward. So to do that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take maybe about a centimeter, about 2 centimeters, maybe a centimeter and a half or so, about that much thread. I kind of grasp it and I kind of measure it with my finger so that I'll stay consistent as I go forward. I cut it like this. Now I'm just going to lay it down there, come, and I'm just going to grab those butts right there like that, and then I'm going to flare it in place so you can see that it's on there. Then I can come in and snip it back a little bit if I need to, because the closer I get, because I'm going to stack another bunch right here, so I need to make space for that. So let's go ahead and let's wrap my thread forward. I'm not going to bother packing that bunch. It's on the tail. It's not really going to go anywhere. So let's start over again. Take my bunch, come and roll it to the bottom, flare it. That one flared nice and clean. You can see it's all the hair is right on the bottom of the hook shank. Add a little glue to it. Then I'll come back to my natural deer hair again. Comb it out. We'll put it in my stacker. Then I'll pull it, get my tips out. Okay, now you notice this one didn't stack perfect, and that's okay. It doesn't matter. But again, come in and grasp about the same amount of hair. I'm going to trim it like I did before. Get 2 wraps and pull it right in there. Kind of trim these butts back. Pull everything back and put some thread wraps in there. Now I'm going to take my half hitch tool. I'll throw a couple half hitches right on the front of that. And then I'll take my packing tool and we will come back and I'll just compress that back. Now see, that time you can see I got quite a bit of movement on it. And so you can see I'm starting to get this little mousy looking body on the back. So let's come forward again. And now basically I'm going to just keep repeating that over and over again. I'm going to put the bleached on the bottom and the natural deer hair on the top, and I'm going to come to about this point right here on the hook shank, at which point then I'll just spin some hair, because then I'll have the head of my mouse up here. So now it's just a matter of repeating that. Stop there with that technique. Now I'm going to change what I'm doing a little bit, because I'm up at the front of the fly. This front of the fly is going to be where my head is at. So I'm going to do the same to start with. I'm going to put a bunch of this bleached hair on the bottom. So I'll start here and come around and roll that to the bottom. But then when I come here on the top, I'm not going to worry about the tips at this point. I'm not going to stack it anymore. I'm just going to comb it out. Clip top and bottom. So I treated it the same way that I did the bleach for the bottom. I'll lay it in here at a 45, come get the middle of it at this point. And now flare that there. Now I'm going to add a little more on top because this is going to be the head of my fly. So I'll just kind of do a little stacking technique here at the end. So now let's come forward here. Put a couple half hitches in. And I need to do that again because that's too much space for the eye, for my little nose that I'm going to put on it. Just come in here and grab that hair and roll it to the bottom. Just drop a little glue in there. And then put some of this natural deer hair up on top. And that's not too bad. Let me see if I can show you. I've got what I want here is, see if I can get this hair out of the way and get you to see what I've got going on here. Yeah, well, kind of getting there. Well, let me finish off the thread. There, I don't know if you can see that, but that space right there is about the same as the diameter of the hook eye. So that's kind of a standard. That'll be enough for my nose on this mouse pattern. So now, just as I started with the thread, I'm going to come back and use some Zap-A-Gap, apply some Zap-A-Gap to the thread. And wind that glued thread over the top there, and then we'll throw a couple half hitches on top of it. And come in here and flip it. And kind of look through it here. So you can see the bottom is this nice bleach colored hair, and the top is looking kind of mousy. You could almost probably fish this right here and catch fish with it. Let's go ahead and let's begin the trimming process. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to turn it upside down, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to trim the bottom. Okay, so I'm going to use my little stone foe tool here, flip it around my stone foot tool. It's got a razor blade in it. I'm going to come in here and just, let's flip the blade around, see if the other side's sharper. Ideally, you want that just to cut right smoothly through there. There we go, that's what you want. Okay, so now I'm at a point with my fly where I want to, and really you could just put a thread wrap head on it and put some Sally Hansen's on it and go fish it. You don't need to do what I'm about to do, but what the heck, it's fun. So let's put some ears on it. So what I've done is I've got a little brass tube I got. This one is a 7/16 and I've sharpened an edge on it here. And I have some 2mm brown foam, and I've got a little cutting board here that I'm using. So I'm going to come in here and I'm just going to cut a couple of nice circles. Let's get that a little better. There we are. You see it stayed right in the cylinder. Let's pop it out. Let's do another one here. And again, it's up here in the cylinder, so we'll pop it out. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my ear. I want to fold it. If I fold it, you can see it kind of makes kind of a nice little mouse ear shape. So I'm going to fold it, and I'm going to take some Zap-A-Gap, and I'm just going to put a little bit right down here in the corner like that. Just a little bit right in that point. Okay. Then I'm going to come in here with my hemostats, and I'm going to squeeze that close. You can see I got a little mouse ear going. Just leave it for a second, and that glue will cure. Okay, so now you can see that that's been glued into this little ear shape that I want. All right, so let's do that to my other one. So I'm going to fold it here, start by folding it, putting a little Zap-A-Gap right here in the base of it, just a little bit. And then take my hemostats, close it, and then you can see I got this little mouse ear kind of going. And that should probably do it. Yeah, now it's holding together. All right, so before I put my ears in, I'm going to take my cauterizing tool here, and I'm going to cauterize some little eye sockets in here. So let's come in here and, whoops, careful, don't set it on fire. There's one eye socket. And let's see, let's come across from that one. There we go. I'll be a little more careful this time. They can set the hair on fire, as you saw. I don't know if you saw that, but I did set the hair on fire over here. Okay, so I've got a couple little eye sockets going there. Come in and brush out my ash. Okay, so now I'm going to put my ears in. And so what I'm going to do is I just have some super glue gel. This happens to be Gorilla Glue, but any gelled super glue will do the trick. And what I want to do here is I'm going to put the ear just inside the eye, so kind of right in that little space right there. So what I do is I come in here and I just separate the collar. I pull the collar back and make a little space there in the head. And then once I have that little space, I'm just going to put a little bit of this gelled super glue in there, like that. And then take my ear and I'm just going to set it into that super glue, that little point down into that super glue. Turn them forward a little bit and just let them sit there a minute. And that super glue will grab it. I'm going to come on the other side, do the same thing. Kind of separate the hair a little bit. Put a little ball of the gelled super glue right there. And get my ear kind of down into that. I'll hold it down in there a minute. And that ought to do it. There we go. I think they're in there pretty good. Okay, so now I got my ears in. So now what I'm going to do is let's come up front here and make sure we've got everything nice and cleaned up around the eye of the hook. And I'm going to take some UTC 140 black nylon thread, and I'm just going to start in here and do a thread base over top of the thread wraps that I've already done, the gel spun thread wraps that are glued in down there. So let's cut that. Okay, now I'm going to use some moose body hair, some Nature Spirit moose body hair. And I just took a little bunch of it, going to comb out. There's a little bit of under fur in this one. I'm going to use my smaller stacker this time. I don't need that real big one I was using earlier. Stack these up. You want to get these nice and even. Okay. So now you can see I've got them here. I'm just going to come and get a little pinch, maybe a centimeter. And then I'm going to cut the ends. Now very carefully transfer them to your other hand like this. And then shove them back in there and just hold them right in place, right on top of the hook shank. Now come in behind. Your fingers kind of hold it in place, tighten up on them. There we go. Now take about half of them and come to the side with them. And catch them and make them go to the side. Now take the other half, come to the other side with them. Try to catch them going to the side, kind of like that. Now I'm just going to hold on to them here, and I'm going to wrap back against my deer hair head. There we go. Yeah, that looks pretty good. So now I'll come back here to the eye of the hook, and then use my whip finish tool and come in here and get a whip finish on it. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and put some eyes in it. So one of the things you got to be careful of here, putting the eyes in, is to not let the glue. The reason I put the whiskers on first, before the eyes are on, is because when I put the whiskers on after the eyes and manipulating the whiskers around, I tend to move the eyes around. It's easier for me to take the whiskers and just get them out of the way. The only thing you got to be careful of is not getting glue in the whiskers. And I can kind of pull them out of the way like that. So let me open up my Dave's Flex-Cement here, which, if you recall, is nothing more than goop cement that's been thinned with toluene. So I'm going to come in here and very carefully just put a dollop of that stuff right down in my my eye socket there. Then I'm going to come in with my goop cement, and I'm going to put some goop cement down in there. And remember, the reason for this is the thinner in the Flex Cement will kind of grab the goop and draw it into the hair a little more. So now I'm going to take my eyeball and drop it into that little socket where the glue is at. Now I'll flip it around, kind of pull my whiskers out of the way, and repeat the process. Take just a small dollop of my Dave's Flex-Cement and get it down in that eye socket. And then come and get an eyeball here and drop it down into that glue. Then I'll just kind of work it down in there a little bit. There we go. Now let's take a look at my whiskers. Yeah, they're looking pretty good. So if you look at it head on, kind of see the whiskers. See the eyes, see the ears. And then the final touch is to come in here with just some Sally Hansen's Hard as Nails. And I'm really going to saturate the heck out of those thread wraps, just to really make those thread wraps bind down. I'll get here on the bottom of it too. Really just kind of paint those thread wraps with a good coat of this stuff. Okay, now let's see if I can rotate this so you can see it. This happens just about all the time. If you look, you can see there's glue down in that eye of that hook. It almost always happens. So just take a feather and I'll run it up through the eye, and I'll come back down this way, and all that excess glue will be pulled out of there, and it won't harden and it won't harden up in that eye of the hook. So this little pattern, you don't need the ears and the eyes and the whiskers. This little pattern, take it out. I float with a good friend of mine. We float the Au Sable River in Michigan, kind of midnight floats, and we toss these little mice up against the banks and swim them out from the banks, and we've hooked some really nice brown trout that way. And if you take this mouse pattern right at dusk, just as the light's leaving the water, toss it out in a bass lake over 6-8 feet of water, and just do a hand twist, slow retrieve, and let that mouse swim across the surface. And it's a great way to pick up that last bass or two of the day. So there you have it, a mouse rat.